Good morning, friends. I'm Satish here from Pragyan AI.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. So this session is actually like to help the people who are in first or second year, and also people who want to learn the C programming language, because one of the programming language they often ask in interview is a C programming language, and they believe it as actually C is the basic foundation programming language. Anyone who wants to learn programming, they should start learning from C. So that is the mindset is there. But nowadays, people start learning programming not using C, but using some other programming language also, like Python or even JavaScript or something else also. But earlier, from like last 10 to 20 years, So from last 20 to 30 years, like anybody who wants to learn the programming, they will be learning using C. But before C, there was so many other programming language, but it is not the first programming language. There was a basic was there. There was Pascal was there. There was A, B was also there. A language and B language also there. But C language is too old. So it is invented by Dennis Ritchie at Bell Laboratory. So you maybe not heard about the Bell Laboratory. Bell Laboratory is one of the pioneer kind of institute. Lot of innovation happened from Bell Laboratory, and Bell becomes AT&T and Bell. That was a telecom kind of a company, and it was very well known. Now something like even better well known compared to the current institutes like Google, Facebook, and all those things. Like it is a very well known for computer things. Like so, Dennis Ritchie was the scientist there. So Bell Laboratory. So it was invented in 1972. It is long back. And one important thing you should be remembering: most of the softwares, I'm talking not just the softwares, but most of the operating systems were written by C. And most, even the compiler, even the softwares like operating system, lot more things is all written in C. So C is very popular, and they used to use C earlier to write these complex things. Like most of the desktop operating system is like the operating system which is used in your laptops or desktops. Desktops means like, systems, correct? So even in the server also, like most of the programming language, but later on these programming operating systems are written using advanced programming languages like C++, Java, and all those things. But earlier, like most of the operating systems are written in C. And the key thing here is actually it is structured programming. Means like what exactly it means actually. There are three things are there. One is programming language, and what is meant by program. So we'll discuss that actually. First is C is a programming language. So when we say it is a programming language, means like the language is used to write a program. So next question comes actually, what is the program? So program is actually set of instructions to perform a specific task. So what is a specific task? Then the next question comes, what is a specific task? A specific task is actually to do certain kind of activities, like identifying number is a prime or not, or identifying printing a Fibonacci series. So those kind of a specific tasks. Like, so when we say that like to do the specific task, we need to write a program. So to write a program, we need to use a programming language. So we can use any programming language. There is no such restriction that you should be always using C programming language. You can use any programming language. C is one of the programming languages. So next question comes actually why it is called a structured programming language. See, whenever you are trying to write anything, it has a structure. Even our language has a structure. So you cannot speak randomly. So first subject has to be there, then object has to be there, and something like that. No, verb has to be there, like there is a sentence, past tense for future tense. It's like, so for every language, there should be some kind of a structure. So here also there is a structure. So why it is called structured programming language? Actually, it is a everything you should be writing in terms of a procedures or some kind of a functions. So that we will discuss what is a procedure, what is the functions later on. But because of there is a proper structure, proper method is to write a programming language, and that is the reason it is called a structured programming language mainly. And it is used in properly used in system programming language. What is meant by system programming language? So all the things which we do, something that like assist the somebody who wants to write a program, like let me take a operating system. You know, Android operating system. What is that? Your smartphone has an operating system called Android. On that, you do a lot more activities, correct? So those, what is that objective of the operating system? To help you to do certain kind of activity on the system or on the CPU. So if you are writing those kind of a program which assist you to execute things or use the device or use the hardware more effectively, those kind of programs are called system programs. Like compiler, like what is the compiler? So the program what we write in C code has to be executed, means like we need to compile, correct? So that compiler is called system program. If you are writing a compiler, then that is called system programming. If you are writing operating system, that is called a system programming. If you are writing something which is like interacting with the device, or you are interacting with the certain kind of the display, so then those kind of programs are called system programs. So if you are writing a program to do those kind of activities, that is called that programming language is system programming language. So if you are writing a web application, then that programming language is called web application programming language. If you are writing something like an app, then those kind of programming languages are called app programming languages. It's like if you have to write an Android app, what kind of programming language you will be learning. If you have to write a website, what kind of programming language you should be learning. All are different, and some programming languages can be used multiple places. Some programming languages are very specific to specific applications. So I only using this like JavaScript or something. No, it is only used in writing a web application, website. So some programming languages we used everywhere. They will be used in application also. They will be used in mobile app also. They will be used in writing system program also. They will be used in something else. But popularly, C programming is used to write a system programs. So any questions here? Any doubts? Who doesn't understood what is system programming language? Any doubts? Any doubts on what is meant by programming language? Okay. And okay. So like so many like for different kind of application, there will be different programming languages are there. Like so, for example, if you are looking for MATLAB is heavily used for mathematical kind of hello. Am I audible? Okay. So yeah, most of the programming language are generic, or some of the programming languages are specific to specific applications. Like for example, MATLAB is used to write a mathematical operations based kind of programs like signal processing or some kind of audio processing, image kind of processing. So so some programming languages are very generic. They can be used anywhere. And some are specific to applications like web application based programming like Java, JavaScripts and all those things are like web application related, like C, CSS and all those things. So C is actually mainly used for embedded systems, like they're like hardware with the software. Like so you may be seeing that like washing machine has some processor, or like any car, any automotive, where there is a hardware and there is a software. So that is called embedded systems. So in embedded systems, in system programming, C programming language is heavily used. And it is heavily used to write a lot of operating systems like Unix, Linux. Linux is 80% written in C only. Microsoft OS also written in C only. Even Mac OS also written mostly in the C only. So Unix, So even database like MySQL, Oracle is completely written in the C. So if most of the complex softwares, system softwares are written in C, and C, that is the reason the C is most popular earlier, but nowadays like they started using other languages also. So uh, even the Google Chrome, you may be using the Google Chrome, correct? So this is what I'm trying to show, what I'm displaying, that like Google Chrome, Firefox, all those things are used, written using C programming language, all these softwares. So any questions here so far? Okay. There are two more things are there. First, I will explain that. Something called assembly language, something like high level language, and something called machine language. So when we write a programming language, so when we say language, means like that we say, no, like we are communicating, that is a language, that is natural language. And when we use a language to write a program, that is called programming language. And in the programming language, there are three types of the programming languages there. One is the high level programming language, which is similar to which is similar to English, and it is easy to understand, easy to write. So C, C++, Python, all those are high level programming language. And one programming language which machine understands. Like, so when we write a program, that program has to be executed on the system. So it's like on a computer. It's like computer needs to understand that program, then only it can execute. So, but computer understands the machine language. That is which is, for example, if it is an Intel processor, it understands Intel instruction sets. So Intel machine code. So that is 86 machine code. So if it is a ARM processor, that is the ARM kind of processor. What is a processor? You already know, no? What is a subprocessor? What is a computer? Any doubts? Any people doesn't know what is a computer? What is a processor? See, if you see my system is a Mac system. So I will be using, see, if you see here actually, I will be using, it is an Intel core, Intel i5 processor. So it's like I will be, my machine, if I have to execute program in my system, so the machine code for this actually Intel code, it's like Intel machine code. So if I'm running on some Android phone, so most of the Android phones are having a ARM processors. So if you take your Android phone and check what is the processor there, it is most of the time it is an ARM processor. So if it is ARM processor, it understands ARM machine code. So if it is some other system or some other processor. So when we say that like the programming language which can be executed on the machine directly, that is a machine code. And the program what we write, which is easy to understand, easy to write, and English like kind of a programs programming languages are called high level programming language. So in between that, so from the high level to the machine level, there is something called assembly language. So how exactly assembly language? So let me show you one example with the Intel processor. So for example, 8086, like so assembly language. So let me show you some example of assembly language. See, this is assembly language. So this is how the assembly language looks like. So move RAX1, move RDI1, move. So what is this move? Means like moving one value in one. So this one is moved to AX, RDI, SI, DX are registers. So these are called registers actually. This code is also specific to machine. So if this is a Intel based something that like, and this is actually like whatever I am trying to say here actually, this code is actually to write a hello word program in assembly language. Is it difficult or easy? So let me show you I will also show you that like how to write a hello word program in using C also. So this is what is called assembly. Yeah, any doubts? So this is assembly level. And if you have to convert into the machine, so this is a see move CXB ECX EBX. What is EBX and ECX is registers, computer registers. So this is assembly language and this is a machine language. So this processor understands. So what is this 101010? It is too much difficult to even understand and even able to write it actually. Even write assembly code is very, very difficult. And that is the reason most of the times what we do is actually we write the program in high level programming language. That is C, C++ kind of programming languages. And then I will be using some kind of a software called compiler, interpreter, or assembler, those kind of softwares to convert one language to another language. Like for example, if you don't only know the Kannada, I only know the English. If you both has to communicate, then I will be using a translator which will translate. Please mute. I will be using a translator who will be translating from English to Kannada, something like that. Correct? So that because if you are if you are a machine and you only understand Kannada, then I am who are writing a program. I can only know how to talk or write in English. Then how should we both communicate? So I should be using another processor, another software who will convert from English to Kannada. So interpreter, compiler, all those things are converting from one language to another language. So we will be using some kind of a interpreter, compiler, or assembler to convert things. Like so, usually like when for to convert C to machine code, we will be using C compiler. So it's like C language to machine code, we will be using C compiler. If you are trying to convert C++ to machine code, then you will be using C++ compiler. If you are trying to use convert from Python to machine code, then I will be using Python compiler, not the same compiler, different compilers, because the one side the language is different, no? So we will be using different compilers. Like, but the intention here is actually what we are trying to say here is actually C is the high level programming language. C is a high level programming language, and we will be using a software and we will be using certain kind of a tools to compile and execute the programs. So far what we will be using, like we won't be using Borderland C, Visual Studio kind of a compiler, since like it is a standalone kind of things. Like we will be using sometimes some kind of a tools which have is a compiler, but it works on online. So there are 3 compilers I have mentioned here. So I will be using that. So it is very, very useful. Like let me show you one compiler. So this is one compiler. Here I will be executing this code because it is much more easier for me to demonstrate and execute and explain. So this is one. There are so many compilers are there. It is not that like only one. So Borderland C is there, Visual Studio is there, GCC is there. So many, and some are standalone softwares are there. You have to install in your system, and some are online. So most of the times I will be using online compilers. This is one, and let me show you another one. This is another one. So online eGDB is one more, and there is one more compiler. There are multiple compilers are there. I will be using this one because see, we can also use not only I can run the C code, I can also use some other programming language also. This supports these many programming languages. So these may like it supports Python, it also supports JavaScript. So this compiler has a multiple compilers, like it supports so many programming languages like web application, even database languages, like if you wanted to write a MySQL, SQL queries, all those things, it works here. So that is the reason I am using this compiler. Any doubts here? So any doubts about C introduction? What is C, when it is invented, is why it is called structured programming language, why it is called high level programming language? Any doubts? Okay. The first thing when we say that we wanted to write a program, first thing what we will be doing, we will be writing hello program. So I showed you that like assembly code for hello program, correct? So first thing what we will be writing is actually we will be writing for hello world program. What is that actually hello world? I just wanted to say hi, hello to the programming world. So how should I write that actually? Very, very simple. So since it has a structure, C programming language has a structured programming language, it has certain specific structures we should be doing. So first thing is actually we should have something called include, and there is something called function, and there is something called printf, and there is something called bracket, and all those things. So we'll discuss one by one. So when we write a program hello world, so it should have an include. So what is this include? It is a pre-processing command. So include. So if you say hash, this you should be very clear about the syntax of any of these statements. So this is all, this include a lot more other things also there. Let me show you. These are called preprocessor commands. Let me go to that section. Yeah, preprocessor commands. These are called preprocessor commands. Not only include, actually, hash include, hash define, has undefined, has if def. So many preprocessor directives are there. We will be using so many processor, but one main one is actually the include, because why we need to include? So include some library. So if I have to include some library, means like, what is a library? So library is actually a collection of some programs somebody has written, and those libraries are accessible for us to use it. So instead of writing my own code, I will be using the code written by someone else. So they will be writing bulk number of codes, number of programs, and they will create a library, and I will be using those libraries. Like printf is a library code function written by someone else. I will be using it. Actually, to use this functions written by someone else, I should be using that, means like I should include those library. Means like I need to say that like where exactly these functions are there. So then I need to know that like in some kind of a, I need to link these function to the library. So to do that, actually, I should be using include. So include, and in the greater than or less kind of a mark, something called a stdio.h. Means like, what is stdio.h? Actually, standard I means like input, O means like output. So standard input output functions means like it has all standard input output functions. So if you are using standard input output functions, what are the standard input output functions? Printf is a output function, scanf is an input function. So if you are using in your program these functions written by someone else, then you should be including specific library. So since I'm using printf here to print the hello world, I will be including stdio.h. Any questions here? So first thing is, actually, when we write a program, so first we should be including all those libraries which we are supposed to use in our program. So first thing is, actually, what are you are trying to use, then you should be including those things. And the second thing comes into actually the function. What is the function? So first function which will be executing when you are executing the C code is actually the main function. So whenever you try to run a program, so the first function it will try to execute it from where it will start is the main function. So int main in the bracket is the main function. And what is this int? Actually, this every function will take some input and it will give some output. So something like that, if you wanted to say mathematical function. So you people knows what is a mathematical function, correct? How many people knows what is a mathematical function? See, functions are functions, but I'm trying the programmatic functions or mathematical functions. Let me explain you what is a mathematical function. So if you heard about something that like f of x is equal to something like x square plus 2x. So there is a mathematical function. So what is that means? Actually, if I give x is equal to 0 input to the function, what it will give? 0 square plus 2 into 0, it is 0. So what is this? Actually, this is output. So what is called, this is what it will return, correct? So something, this function, it will take some inputs and it will return certain outputs. So like that, similar to that, actually in program also, it will take certain inputs, any function, it will take certain inputs, like so assume that like a function f is a function. So it will take certain inputs. So certain inputs and it will return certain outputs. So what it will return, I am trying to write here. So if I say int here, so I will say that like it will return a int variable. Int means like integer. What is the integer? Number 1, 2, 3, 4, minus 1, 2, all these are integers. Like when I say that like when I define something that like a int main, so main, this is a function. So if I'm not having any value here, so if I'm saying that like nothing I'm saying here means like it doesn't take any input, it is something that like, or if we are taking some input, I should be saying that like if it takes some input like int a or b or something that like int a comma int b means like it is taking two values. So but here I'm not giving anything, it's like it is not taking anything. So main function is not taking anything and it is returning what it is returning, returning int. To return value, what we should be using the keyword called return. So 0 is integer, correct? So I should be returning. So this function, this is a starting point. How should I say that like this function starts here, ends here using the flower brackets. So I need to have a flower brackets to start and I need to have a flower bracket to close. So how I will be using flower bracket? So usually like the start will be no, see I should be using one kind of things. No, so I will be using, this is a start of the flower bracket. This means like start of the function and this is the end of the function. What all these I have written number of statements or whatever I'm writing, this is all belongs to this function. So because this is a start here and this is the end here. So this is notion. So key thing what you should be remembering, what is the structure of the C program? First is actually we should be having all the includes, whatever the includes we wanted to use, all the includes has to be there. How the includes should start with? Starts with hash and the keyword called include, hash keyword called include, and then the brackets. In the brackets I should have the library header files. So dot h means like h means like header file. So see every file will have specific file extension. So if I'm writing a C code, I will be saying I will be sharing this file as .c. If I'm writing a C++ code, then a program, then I will be saving this file as .cpp. So if I'm writing a Java code, I will be saving that file. So what is that actually? The file name. So something like file name. So something that like my file or something .c. So I'm just, this is called file extension. The .cpp, this is called file extension. So this .h is called file extension for what kind of file? Header file. .h, whatever the .h say, no? So if you have to include a library, then you should be including the header file for that library. And the header file will start having extension .h. So you should remember .h is a header file extension for header files. So header file for the library. So first thing is you should remember include the libraries. And the second, the key thing is you should have a main function. And main function, either it will return a value or it doesn't return a value. Here it is returning a value. What kind of value? Integer value. And to return the integer value, something like I should have a function called return 0. And another thing is like every statements are ended by semicolons. That is very, very important in C code. Every statement, this is called one statement. This is called another statement. This is called almost like if you have write so many things now, so everything is called one statement. So one statement will be ended by semicolons. So it's like, what is a semicolon? Semicolon is saying that like it will end the statements. What is this flower brackets? Start and end. It is saying that like a block of the code is being content. What is the block of the code? Multiple lines of the codes if to put together, we will say a block of codes. So when I say block of code means like multiple statements put together, we'll call a block of code. To say that like start of the block, we'll be using flower bracket and end of the block, we'll be using another flower bracket. So key thing you should know is actually include the libraries, have a main function, and the main function will return, so that like I should be having return statement. This is all necessary and the flower bracket is necessary. And this main function doesn't take any input. And what is the next thing? So I am using the library function called printf. to print the result. So what is that actually? Print in the bracket. Printf is the function name. In the bracket, in the code, hello, comma, word, something. So this is how I will be writing the hello word. Any doubts here? Any doubts? Okay, so this is how I will be writing. So now I'm trying to write here. So include thing is there, main function is there, and functions I have written, return I have written. So now how should I run? So there's a read command. So I will be writing it actually. So if I do something, some mistakes, it will say that like, what is the mistake here? So if I'm not done any mistakes, so it doesn't give anything. So any questions here? Any questions? Any doubts? Okay. So now what is this here actually? This is the name of the file main.c. So you can edit this also. I don't want to say that like I wanted to say here something on matter. Hello or hello program. I can say hello program. And what is this .c? .c is the extension. So now this is a file name I've shared. So now this is my code. So I can write anywhere. So now I'm trying to run. So when I say I'm trying to run it, actually, this program, this is high level program, is compiled into machine level code and it will be executed. And all this is done by compiler. Which is the compiler I'm using? So and output looks like here, hello world, I'm getting the result. So now, even if it is a int return, even if I'm not returning anything, still it is okay. So even if I'm not returning anything, so still it is okay, still it will execute. And even if you say void also, void means like nothing, it doesn't return anything. So still it will be good also. But sometimes what happens actually, gives error depending on the compiler, but void also is fine, because if I'm deciding that like this function doesn't return anything, then I will be saying void. So when I say void means like it doesn't return anything. So if I say int means like it will return certain values, then you should be same thing. So how should we write actually? What is the procedure? So initially, like the structure when you are trying to write, so first you should know that like what are the inputs you should be doing. And then you should write the skeleton for the function. What is the skeleton for the function? So main function is necessary. So main function I will be writing. So int, how I will be writing? Int main and in the bracket. Then, so when I say int, then I should have a return, then I should have a bracket. And then this is called skeleton of the code. So first we should learn to write the skeleton of the code. And then you should start what needs to be done. So I need to print hello world. So I can say printf, I'll be using printf. Then in the course, hello to C programming class. I can write anything. So class. So I'll be running. So any doubts? Okay. So let us move on to the next thing. So we discussed this way. And so what are the structure of the programming? Predefined preprocessor commands, that is include and define or something. And then the functions. So what functions I'm using here? Main functions. And then there is something called a variable. Then there's something called as statements and expression. And there is something called the comments. So we'll go one by one. So there is a function. We discuss what is a function. Functions will take some inputs and it will give some outputs. and each function perform specific task. So some objectives actually. So we'll discuss detail later on when we are discussing function. But right now you think that like what all the necessary to write a C basic function. So first you should start writing with the basic structure, which has include, which has main, function, return, and semicolon. These all things you should be remembering. So what is a preprocessor commands? Like we first let us only look into include, but I will explain all other things like what is meant by define, undefine, if done, but later on. So these are called preprocessor. What is meant by preprocessor? Why it is called preprocessor commands means like, see, there are two steps are there. What is called step 1 and step 2 in the compilation. First step is actually it will convert, so it won't compile in one go. So what happens actually, whenever you are trying to say compile the program, actually, like if I written a C code, so this won't compile in one go. First is actually it will only process the preprocessors. Means like what happens actually, like it will only process the preprocessor things and then create another output, another program, and that program will be compiled. So why this is called preprocessor? So since I'm using printf is written by someone else. So in the pre-processing, what it will do, so somebody has written a code printf. Now that code and your code will be put together and creates one different code. So that is all done in the pre-processing things. Like though that has to be done before this code will be compiled to the header thing. So that though something which will be processed first before processing the code is called preprocessor definitives. So that will be done first before we start compiling or interpreting the code. So preprocessor commands, all those things will be done first things. We'll discuss other things. So next is actually the next, any doubts here so far in the structure of the code, C code, what is meant by preprocessor, why we should include, what is meant by bulk code, what is meant by function. Any questions? Okay. The next thing is what we should do is actually, there are two things essential if you wanted to interact or write a code. One is actually how should we read the input and how should we write the result to the screen. So there is something called input. You should be reading from standard some place and you should be displaying output into some display. So here, like if you see here, actually, I'm trying to execute the code, and that code has to be executed and it has to be print somewhere else. So it has to give some output, correct? It has to execute and it has to give certain output. So this is output. So, and I need to read something from user also. So now here, if this is, since it is something, now this is Std In. So from here you should be like, if you wanted to give any input, you should be typing here and output will come here. But if you are running in your own system, then from keyboard you will be giving input and output will be displayed on the screen. So this, what is this thing called input and output? That is called standard input. So standard input and standard output. So first we'll discuss what is the way to display the result into standard output and how to read the input information from the standard input. So that is called standard in, standard out. So these are part of stdio.h. So fine. Okay. So to read something, I will be using some function called scanf. So scanf is another function to read the value from the user input. So to print something, to display the value to the standard output, I'll be using function called printf. Printf actually printing the output on the display device. Scanf is actually read from the keyboard or like standard input the values. So scanning means like scanning in, printing out actually. So printf and scanf, these are the two functions you should be knowing. So these are very, very basic functions. So now let me do the, what should I read actually? So I should read anything. I should read integer, I should read decimal values, I can read characters, I can read anything. So for example, here in this code, what I'm trying to do actually, I wanted to read a name of a person. Like I wanted to greet you. So for example, your name is Rishabh. I want to say that like, hello, good morning, Rishabh. How should I do that actually? So I should be reading the first thing you should figure out actually, if I have to write a program for that, first I should do what is the thing I should be doing. First, I should start having a skeleton of the code. So what is the skeleton of the code? Then this is how I'm writing the skeleton of the code. Now, what I'm intention is actually, I wanted to read certain information from the user. So what is the information I wanted to read? So I will be saying that like printf, I wanted to read the name of the person. So I will be saying enter the name, your name, enter your name. So I'll be saying enter your name and colon. So now, so this is actually, this will display it actually, but how should I read? So to read there, I need to have a function called scanf. So printf is actually printf in the bracket, in the quotes, whatever I wanted to display. So this is how it will print. Like, let me just run this much. So this is how it looks like. So I have to have colon here. So this is how it looks like. So enter your name. So now to read that one, what should I do? So I should be having another function called scanf. So scanf. So now here in the bracket, any functions will have a bracket, correct? So in the bracket, I need to have some kind of a quotes. In the quotes, I need to define what I should be reading. So what I wanted to read, I wanted to read a name. Name is of type, is it an integer? It is a character, it is alphabets. So alphabets means like, I will, in C programming language, I will be reading the character. So if you are reading digits, numbers, then I should be I'm reading a integer value. If it's the decimal values, then I'm reading a floating point values. So since I have to read the strings or characters, so I should be saying that like, I need to define, I need to tell the computer that like you should be reading the character. So I will be saying scan S. S is actually percentage, actually percentage is trying to say that like what I'm trying to read. So S is actually, I'm trying to read S for string. If it is wanted to read a digit, I should be saying D. If I'm trying to read a floating point, I should be saying F. If I'm so let us say that like S is to read the name or letters things. Then there is a colon. So this is a quote in the quotes. I should be saying percentage S and then the comma. So the comma means like this is one thing is done. The second thing. So where should I read? I should have a variable to read. So I should have a variable to read. So what is the name? Variable name is actually something that like variable name is name. I will explain what is the variable also. So I should read somewhere else, correct? So name is the variable names. So how should I read? So is it fine? So to read it actually there is something called percentage is necessary. So what is this percentage or this ampersand and this percentage? All this is all the structure or method to write a code. So in C, there is a well-defined structure. So if you have to read a value, then you should have a variable name. And in front of that, you should have ampersand. Means like it is saying that like I am reading the name in the variable called name by saying ampersand. If you are not having ampersand, then it doesn't read it actually. So you need to have a ampersand there. And here, what you are trying to read, that need to be defined in the codes. Percentage S means like I am reading string. So though this name I am trying to read, but this name variable has to be defined somewhere else, correct? So I should be defining variable. What is that actually? This is a char. So I'm trying to say char. And since it is a multiple names, multiple letters I should be having, I'm saying that like 50. So what is this actually? Char is a data type. So char is a data types. Name is a variable identifier name thing. And what is this 50? This is a 50 means like I wanted a 50 letters to be. Means like it can hold. This variable can hold 50 letters, not an individual value. It can hold 50 letters. So how should I define? So in the bracket. So this is called array of characters. I will discuss this later on, but this is called array of a characters. So and for every statement, this is one statement, correct? This is the one statement I am trying to have a colon there. So what is this actually? This is where I am trying to define. I am trying to define the variable called, what is that actually? The variable called name. Okay. So what is this bracket? What is this slash slash? This is called comment. If you see here actually, if I write something like this, So this is not a comment. So now if I try to run, actually, it doesn't understand what is this. It will give error. So if I want the computer should ignore, means like I should be saying slash and slash, double backward slash, actually, two backward slash. Now what happens? It is able to execute properly. So I'm trying to read the name. So I should be trying to print the name. So for example, I wanted to write my own name. Okay, right. So I will be able to execute. So let me go here. So enter the name. So I should be entering the name. So fine. So this is a fine. Let me show that. Like now I have read that value, then I should be printing the output. What is the printing actually? I should be saying that like hello to all from percentage s. So what is percentage s? The name. So I am the column. So any doubts here? So hello to all from Satish. So I have read the input. So I have given here. So it is different here. So in if you are running in your standalone system, so it will command will be prompted there and you should be entering value. So here, if you have to enter something, input has to be here defined. So this is like whatever you are typing here. So it will take as an input and output will be displayed here. So fine. Any doubts here so far? Any questions? Anybody has any questions? Okay, so let me go further here. So one thing, what is actually, this is a variable name. So we'll define what is exactly means by comments variable names one by one. So comments is actually anything if you want to ignore. So I should be starting with double backslash. So anything if you wanted to say, why should we write a comment? Just to help you to understand the code very well. So if I don't have a code and the comments, then I won't be able to read it well. So I don't understand it actually. To improve the readability, I'm trying to have a comments there. So if is the function here, so I'm trying to say. So this is a hello word, even everywhere, like I can say that like I can write comment any everywhere just to explain what is that I'm writing. Like for example, let me take this function. So I wanted to say this is a main function I have to say. Then I'll be saying this is a main function. This is a main function. The program start execution from here. Program will start executing from here. Start executing from here. So executing from here. So now if this include, so I said that like this I am trying to write include for printf and scanf functions, to use printf and scanf. Without include, if you try to do actually like if I'm not having using this actually, then it will give an error. So let me show that also. So if I don't include this, actually, then it will give an error. So by default, like so, if I am trying to use this any of these functions, it will give an error. So include is very much essential. So fine. So now I'm trying to, and what is this actually? This is saying that like returning the return the integer value. So now see why what I'm trying to demonstrate actually, like this comments like slash slash is helpful to make my code more easy to understand. To make my code more easy to understand. What is this actually? Return value. So why it is, see why it is returning 0? So it is because this function returns integer value. So function returns integer value. That is the reason return 0. And it is optional. It is why it is optional? It is optional. Without that also it will work, optional. So let me show that like that is optional also. So if I'm not returning anything, I'm saying that like white, then still it runs. So still it runs, but better to have a return. So better to have a int and return. So any questions here so far? Okay. Any doubts about the comments? So, and one more thing we should note actually, this and this are different. So backslash is different and this is a forward slash. Both are different. So you cannot write forward slash. So if you say forward slash, it will give error. So it will give error. So you should know that like one is a forward slash, another black slash, and you should have two. You should not have one. That is also an error. You should have two. And each statement should end with semicolon. These are the key things you should be remembering. So the next thing is actually we will have a question. What is the correct way to comment in C program? Anyone answer? Anyone? A, B, C. Which is the best way to write a comment? A, B, C, D.
A.
Okay, good. So now next thing is like, so what we discussed here is the comments we discussed, and we also discussed about data types. Let us go a little bit like more about the data types. What are the data types supported in C? So there are two kind of data types supported. Let me go back to that. One more. Okay, so okay. So there are two types of data types. One is primitive or basic data types. Another is something called a user-defined data types. So we'll discuss the user-defined data types later on. So first thing is like we will discuss the primitive. Primitive or built-in or like already defined. So that is called the data types. Like what we already defined one, no need to define further. So those kind of data types called primitive data types. So what all those data types are there? One is of called integer, second is of floating point, third is character, and then one more is null or void. Actually we'll discuss one by one. So one is the integer. Integer means like integer values. You already know what is the integer values, correct? So something that like 5 minus 5 minus 23 plus 23, so 9. So these are all called integers. So that is called integer types. So how should I define integer? So there is multiple ways to define integer variables. Like, so if I have to define a variable of type integer, then it should start int and variable name. A is a variable name and semicolon. So don't see C is a case sensitive. So if you write something like int like this, it doesn't understand. So C is a very case sensitive. Let me show you that also. So if you have to say define int A, this is fine. So this works fine. But if you say capital int or like something that it doesn't understand, it will give an error. So it is a very case sensitive. A case sensitive means like the case of the letter should be very careful. So int is a small. So and also you cannot say that like integer. So in most of the people, like some programming language has used integer, but C doesn't know. So to call integer, you should be having only say int. So it is a int. So fine. So int is a one variable types. The second type variable type is called floating point. What is a floating point? It is a decimal value. Decimal value means like, so there is a number like 5 and then the decimal point and then the value. So it can be 0 also, but dot something, but it should have a decimal point and it should have a value. So these kind of values are called floating point values. Floating point values. So floating point values. So how should we define? So there is a keyword called float. So there is a keyword called float and there is a keyword called double. So double means like, so in terms of size. So what kind of size data I'm trying to define. So float and double is used to define the floating point. So floating point is actually, this is a 38, 4.9, 98 point, all these are floating point kind of literals. Then what is the other one? Another was called a character literals. Character literals like all these characters means like anything which is having written in a quotes. So anything written in the quotes, I will be calling as a characters. So for example, A is a character. So I'm trying to define in a quotes. So Satish is a character. So then I will be trying to say that like this is something that like this is actually string. So it's like string is a collection of characters. So string is a collection of a characters. Let us discuss the character, one character. So this is another character. So anything. So what is the character actually? This has a value. So it has a value, and it is whatever you can see in your computer keyboard. No, all those are considered as a characters actually. All those letters, digits, all these special characters, all those things are called a characters, and these characters has to be defined in quotes. So these three things. And one more thing, it supports actually wide. Wide means like nothing. So wide means nothing. Any questions? Any questions? Okay.
No, sir.
Okay. So what is the character here? So A is not a character. 5.6 is not a character. 5 is not a character. 5 in the quotes is a character. So C character literal means like the characters. How should we define character literals? So it should start with char. So floating point will start with float, no? So how if I have to define a floating point value, how should I define? I say float, I'll float, and A is a variable name, comma. If I have to define double, then I'll be saying double, then something that like A again or like B. So another thing is actually the name should be different. If I'm using one variable as a float, and you should not use the same variable as for a double, because it get compiler get confused whether A is float or A is double. So you should not do those things. So now if I have to define character, then I should be using char A. So char something that like C. So and if I have to int, then I'm saying int A. So then I'll say float, then I should be saying float B. So everything has to be ended with semicolon. So if you are missing semicolon, then it will be problematic for you. So for example, if I have to define three variables, int A, float B, and char C. So I'm trying to define three things. So now if I have to read those values, how should I read? So I should be reading each individual. How should I read actually? I should be reading scanf. So scanf. So to read, first I should be reading integer. So for to read integer, I should be using percentage %d. Then what I should be reading? I should be reading floating point. So to read floating point, I should be using percentage %f. Then what I should be reading? Then I should be reading character. So to read character, percentage %c. So now I will be, how should I read? First one I should be reading into ampersand. So to read everything, so ampersand A, one variable, then ampersand B. So ampersand B, then I am trying to do ampersand C. So ampersand C. So this is how I'll try to read. And then you should be ending with a semicolon. Same thing if you wanted to print out. So then I'll be printing out. So I should be printf. So what I'll be doing, I'll be saying printf here. So print the value. So here I'm not reading here, I'm just printing here. So I'm trying just print the value here. So let us run this code. So what happens? It waiting for me to enter some value. Correct. So 20.9 gen C. So if I run actually, I'm able to write. So any doubts? Any doubts? Hello, you guys are there? Able to see the code?
Yes, sir.
So scanf to read, printf to print. So I have inputted 10 float. And if you change thing, no, then it will go. See in which order you are trying to read. So first you are trying to read integer, then you are trying to read float, then you are trying to read C. So if I do something like this, actually, it will get confused. So it may give an error. See what I'm trying to do. So trying to, it may give an error. But what is happening here actually? So it is truncating. This is considering as this 20 is considered as integer and dot is considering thing and C is considering. So let me, if I have something like this. So this again, it is considering as a integer. Most like these kind of issues will come. I will discuss this later on. But if you are reading in the proper kind of order, then only it will be working fine. But what is happening actually, it is trying to interpret this as integer negative value, and this is whatever you are entering as C, that is trying to read as a floating point value, and another one is as a what is called a number. So these kind of, but like some compiler will give error, some compiler will be running with interpreting the value. But it should be, we should be very, very careful whatever the order you are trying to read. So ampersand A, B, C, that is the order you should be giving the value. So any questions here? So we understood, but little bit deeper into that actually we'll go into. So apart from just like saying the integer or something, so there is some other special characters also there. So something that like OX or O, if it start with 0x or it will start with O, means like actually I'm trying to read a hexadecimal value or octadecimal value. So what is the hexadecimal, binary and octadecimal? I hope you already know. What is a binary number? What is the hexadecimal number? What is octal number? So whatever we write like 89 or 90, 30, whatever it may, these are all decimal numbers. All these are called decimal numbers. So what is this called a decimal numbers? Because we are using 0 to 9 digits. So any numbers which starts with 0 to 9 digits, using writing using these 0 to 9 digits are called decimal numbers. Any of these numbers starting with 0 to 9 are called decimal numbers. So if I say binary numbers, means like binary numbers have only 2 digits, that is 0 and 1. It is 0 and 1. So any number with using only these 2 letters are called binary numbers. Like, so for example, if I have to write 101, this is a binary number. What is the value of 101? This number is called 5. So how should we get decimal to binary? That I'm not going to discuss that, because that you already maybe studied in the basic things. Like, so if I have to justly briefly something, because this 5, if you convert into binary, so how should I convert? So I should be dividing into 2. So 2, 4. So 1 is the remainder. Then again, I'm trying to divide 2, 1 jar 2. So remainder is 0. So then this is how I should be writing. So 1, 1, 0, 1. So this is how I will be getting the binary number for 5. So this 101 is a binary number equivalent to 5. So there is something called a binary number, and there is something called an octal number. Octal number means like the values will be from 0 to 7. So if I have to convert number into octal, so for example 34, I should be converting into octal. What should I do? So I will be dividing into 8. So what is that actually? 8 4s are 32. So that 2 is a remainder. Then another 8. So if I'm trying to divide 8, then I cannot divide. So it won't be divisible, correct? So then what is the remainder? Remainder will be 4. So then what is that actually? 4 2 is the octal number equivalent to 34 in decimal number. So how should I represent? O should be the front. So means like if I say O 42, 42, this is actually octal number, which is equivalent to 34 in decimal number. So same thing, if I have to say binary number, then 0B. If I have to hexadecimal number, what is hexadecimal number? So it will be having 16 digits. What are those 16 digits? 0 to 9, and then A means 10, B means 11, C means 12, D means 13, E means 14, F means 15. So hexadecimal have a 16 digits. So 0 to 9, A, B, C, D, F. So how should I represent hexadecimal number? 0x and the number. So something that like A, B, 0, 4. So this is a hexadecimal number. A number. Any doubts here? What is hexadecimal number? So when you are trying to enter a number, not using decimal, but if you wanted to enter a number, integer value in octal or hexadecimal or binary something, you should be using some kind of a prefix. What was your kind of prefix? So if you use 0x, means like it is a hexadecimal thing. And if you use 0 octal number, and that is also supported. Then apart from that, see this 212 in proper integer and 215, and there's something called a u. What is this u? So apart from this, actually this is a prefix. So prefix means like in front of that. Postfix means like after the number. So what is a prefix and postfix? So if anything start before the number is called prefix. Like for example, I wanted to enter 78. So in front of this, I wanted to have something that like, hey, this is a hexadecimal number. So then I'm trying to have a 0x. This is called prefix. So something is a prefix, and then I can also have a postfix. Means like here, I will be saying U, or I will be saying L. So what is this U, L, all those things? So U means like unsigned. So signed and unsigned. So there are two types of the numbers are there. One is actually unsigned number, and there is something called a signed number. So what is the signed number? What is the unsigned number? So which has a sign. So number will having a sign. So for example, if I wanted to say 8, so and I am saying minus. So what is actually this minus is a sign. So this is sign. So the negative number. So having a sign is actually means like I can enter positive and negative number. So if I say unsigned means like all positive numbers, there is no negative number possible. So if you wanted to specify this unsigned number, then I need to say, so after entering 8, I should be saying postfix as U. So the C supports these things. These are the some of the advanced things you should be knowing. So U also it supports. So the thing is, one U is supported, but double U is not supported. So double U is not supported. If you think about actually this 212 is fine, legal, integer number. And one more thing, this slash and star, slash and star, this is meant by comment. So I can write black slash, or I can use black slash star, and I should be entering with star and slash. So why I will be using this actually? This is called bulk comment. What is meant by bulk comment means like, so I will be having, I will be writing a more number of something. Let's like, so because what happens actually, instead of writing 1/1/1/2 lines, actually, what I'll be like here are something, here something. What I'll be saying, I'll say this is where the star state means like comment starts, and when star and end. So this first and this last. So then the comment ends actually. This is also another way of writing the comments. So another way of writing the comments. So what I'm trying to say is actually it is a legal integer value. This is also legal integer value. But what I'm trying to say is actually unsigned value. This is unsigned value. And this is also a legal thing, because FE is a what is called FE is a hexadecimal value, and L is actually long. L means like long. So long means like, so I will explain what is 1 minute. Int long, this is all the space allocated for the code. Okay. So when I say int, so I will be using only 2 bytes or 4 bytes. When I say unsigned int, then I will be using same thing. So if I say long, then I will be using 8 bytes. So it's like I can store 8 byte size. What is the bytes or bits or something? So why is this byte, bit, all these things came into picture? So for example, if I have to write a integer, so I wanted to enter an integer like 124. This is what is written. This is decimal value, but it has to be stored in a computer. The computer only understands binary. So actually, like even though I'm entering this value as a decimal, but while storing into computer, this will convert into binary and it will store the value in binary. So to store this binary into binary, it needs certain number of bits. So what is the number of bits necessary for here actually? So I need to convert 124 into something like a binary number. How should I convert actually? Binary for 128? Anyone? How should anyone can convert 124 into binary? 128 is how much actually? So what is a binary? The 2, there is a 4, there is a 6, there is 8, 16, 32, 64, and 128. So this is 1, 6. So 1 0 0 0 0 0. So this is a 64, correct? So 64, and now 124 means like again 132. 64 for 32 is actually 96. So 96. Then again 16. If I add 16, how much it will become? So 12. 112. So 60. Then if I add 8, then become 20. Okay, this is 20. Now I should be adding 4, correct? This is 1. So 128 is actually 1 0 1 1 1 1. How many ones actually? 1 2 3 4 5 ones and 2 zeros. So how many bits are there actually? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So this is 5 plus 2. So it needs 7 bits. Are you able to follow me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
See what I'm trying to show here. Any number what we enter in a computer will be stored in a binary format. So binary format means like I should know that if this 124 is entered, so it will be stored as 1111100. To store into binary format, how many bits is necessary? This is 1 bit, 2 bit, 3 bit, 4 bit. Means like it needs 7 bits. Means like if I say int, if I say the number is int, then the memory allocated for that variable to store is 2 bits, 2 bytes. What is meant by 2 bytes actually? If it is 2 bytes means like it can store up to 16 bits. 1 byte means like 8 bits, correct? 1 byte means like, if I say 1 byte means like 8 bits. So I can store the value in only in 8 bits. So means like, for example, if I give something that like a bigger number 1000, can I convert into only 8 bits? Is it possible? So 1024, assume that like if I give a value 1024, how many bits necessary to store this actually? It needs 10 bits. So I cannot store this value in 1 byte. I need 10 bits, correct? So it's like when I say int, it will take 2 bits, means 2 bytes means like it can store value of 16 bits maximum. So what is 16 bits maximum possible value? There is a range. So for example, if I'm trying to share only 1 byte means like what is the value I can store? Minus 128 to 127. If you try to store more than minus 120, less than 128 or more than 127 in a char, you cannot store. It will say it will overflow because there is a number of bits allocated to is only 8 bits. If you wanted to store more than that bits actually, then it won't be, or it will be saying that like I cannot fill. So for example, if you just say char and you give value bigger than 127, then it will say that like I cannot store. So if you say unsigned char, if I say unsigned char, then it will need entire bits. Like what exactly I'm trying to say here is actually, so I will be having the number of bits allocated to store the value. So total, if it is 8 bits, if it is total 8 bits, so 1 bit is allocated for sign. So that is the 7th bit, and remaining 7 bits is to store the value. So I can store minus 128 to 127 positive. So if I give any value greater than this or lesser than this, it cannot be fit into the char value because char is a signed value, 1 byte. So it will store a signed bit. So to store signed bit, 1 bit is necessary. So if it is 0 means like it is a positive. If it is 1 means like it is a negative. So what is necessary to know this the size of the data type is actually, because what is the value, maximum and minimum value, what you can store in that variable. That is very, very essential to know. So now if I say if I say unsigned, means like this is not necessary. All 8 bits will be used to store value. But then what is the value I can store? From 0 to 255. So if you wanted to store more than that, actually, it will go outside the 8 bits. So you cannot store 256. To store 256, what is the number of bits necessary in binary? 1 divided 1 by followed by 8 zeros. Means like this 1 is at 9th bit location. So that is not possible to fit into 1 byte characters. So something similar to that, like integer, if it is taking only 2 bytes, if it is taking only 2 bytes, means like I can store only specific values. So means like my limited value is actually minus 32,786 to plus 32,786. You want to store bigger than that, actually, then it cannot fit. So if you say that like 40,000, then it cannot fit into int, which is using 2 bytes. So you need to have int using 4 bytes. Then I can store this size number. It's like minus something. How much is actually? So millions, 2 millions, correct? So if you wanted to store bigger than this number, then we need more than 4 bytes. So this is the unsigned value. If you are unsigned, it means like the 1 bit will be also used to store the value. So it's like maximum value we can store is actually 4 something 294 point. This is actually. So if you want to store bigger number, bigger than this number, then we need more than 4 bytes. So then I will be using long. When I say long, means like I can store up to 8 bytes. So I can use up to 8 bytes. Means like I can store value of this size. If you want to store bigger than this, means like I need to have a more number of bits necessary. So it's like depending on what value you wanted to store. So if your value is very small, then you can store in a 1 byte. Or if your value is very big, you wanted to store in 2 bytes or 4 bytes or something. You need to decide what kind of variable I need to define. So if your value is well within this, like minus 32,786.68 to 32,767, then I will be using short. Short is actually only 2 bytes. Short is also integer. These all are integer, like int, unsigned, short, long, unsigned, long, all are integer type values. All are integer type values. Only thing what is changing here is actually how many bits are allocated for storing the value and whether it is a signed or unsigned, whether signed is also stored or not. So that is the only difference between the unsigned or not saying signed. And when saying int, short or long, how much the size of the value you can store. What is the maximum or minimum value you can store in that variable? That is all important. First thing you should know is actually integer literals. Then you go a little bit deeper into that. What all the different integer literals I can store? Unsigned integers, signed integers. And not only signed and unsigned, I can store short, I can store long. What is short and what is long? Short will take 2 bytes of the value, 2 byte size, and long will be of 8 bytes. Means like I can store bigger number. If you are wanted to store a bigger number, then you will be using long. If you wanted to have smaller number, then you will use short. If you are using okay mid kind of things, you will be using int. And if you want in positive, negative also, just use int. You just want only positive number, you should use unsigned int. So it is all depend on what value you wanted to read into the variables. Is that clear? Is that clear? Any doubts? Any doubts?
No, sir.
Okay. The next type is actually called floating point. So what is a floating? Floating is a decimal value. So what kind of values we can store here? So decimal values. Let us look into basic of that, and then we'll go to deeper into. So what is the decimal values? You can store you can store 32.9 or minus 40, 56. So any decimal numbers we can store. So what are the data types we can use? There is something called a float. There is something called a double. So it can support float. You can support double. Let us look into what all the other variations we can do in floating. So this is possible. This is legal. 3.144 something 9. This is legal because it can be stored. And there is something called this is also legal. So there is something called a E minus 5 and L. So what is this L actually? Postscripts. It is a long value. And what is this E and minus 5? So what is this E minus 5 is actually, this is another way of writing the number. So if I say 3.14159, so after 3, that like how many after dot, how many values are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This can be converted as 3, 1, 4, 1, 1, 5 and 9 and E minus 5. So what is that means actually? From this point, you will be going minus 5. So minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, minus 5. So then after that, you will be putting a dot. So if I say something like this, so let me. If I have to write a number, something like this. So I wanted to write a number 3.14. So this is a normal way of writing, or you can write 314 and E minus 2. So means like this is another way of writing the floating point. And when we say L means like this is a long format, means like it will be using long size. Means like I'm trying to, this postfix is trying to say that like actually characteristics of the value, whether it is, if I say just a U, use, if I say just U, unsigned value, or if I say L long. So this is the postfix things. So this is the two ways of writing the floating point, using E or without using E. Any doubts? Okay. So using E without using E. So these are the ways. So let us see that like what are the sizes possible here. So let me go into a little bit deeper into there. So we'll see what are the sizes possible here. So in floating point, what are sizes possible here is actually float means like it will use 4 bytes, means like what is the maximum value range we can store. So I can have minus 38 to plus 38. So 1.2 E minus 38 to 3.4 E plus 38. This is the range of value it can store. And how many decimal points it can have? So 6 decimal places. Precision, when you are trying to print, only up to 6 decimal places it will print. So for example, if I give something that like number with more than 6, actually it won't print, it will truncate. So what is meant by truncating is like, if I say 8.1234567 8 9 something like that. So it can only store up to 6, correct? So print up to 6. It's like 1 2 3 4 5 6 up to 6. Then after that, this is truncate. Truncating is like if it is above 5, then it will be adding 1 here. It's like it will print 7. So 8 point it will print something like that. 8.12345. So and 7. Since it is, if it is beyond this, it is lesser than 5. Here it is something that like 1 or 2, then it won't increment. So this is a truncated. So that is not possible. If you use float, if you use double, it will take it can store 8 bytes. So range is, what is the range? 2.3 E minus 308 up to plus 308, means like 615 decimal point. This is the value range. Or if you use long and double, then it will take 10 bytes. So 10 bytes means like how many bits? 8 into 10, 80 bits. It will use 80 bits to store the value. And what is the value range? This is the range. So means like if you are wanted to store a very, very, very big number, then you should be using long double. Big number, then, or else like normal kind of number, float. So this is a, depending on what value you wanted to store in a variable, you should be defining appropriate data types. So what we look into, we look into integer variable types and floating point variable types. And here also there is a unsigned, all those things will be there. So this is a floating point numbers. Then what is the other thing actually? What is the other type of the variable? Then next is a character variables. So let us discuss that also. So the other type is character numbers, like everything is a character literals. So that we discussed. So the another, like if you are wanted to read a multiple characters, then you will be saying a string literals. String literals will have multiple characters. Like, so how I should be defining that should be defined in the double quotes. So if you wanted to define something, hello dear or something that like, so you will be defining in a double quotes. So double quotes will be indicating that like it will have not one character, it will be having multiple characters. So if you are reading multiple characters, is that hello? So understood? So there is a character, there is a string, there is a floating point, and there is a integer. These are the types defined in C programming language. So any doubts here? So first thing what we understood the structure of the programming language. We understood what is meant by preprocessor commands. Then we understood how should we read input, how should we write output. And while reading input and output, we should be reading into a variable. So now we should know that like what variable I wanted to read, what value we need to do. So to know that actually, we need to know what are the data types supported by C programming language. What are those data types supported by C programming language? Integer, floating point, characters, wide, and even something called strings. So what is integers we discussed? What is character we discussed? String we discussed, floating point we discussed. Apart from that, integer, like there is some more things are there. If you use a prefix 0x, you can read hexadecimal, octal, or something. Like prefix is used to tell what kind of value we are reading. So is it a binary number we are reading, whereas hexadecimal we are reading, whether it is octal number we are reading. And there is something called a suffix. Suffix will tell that like, is it an integer value? It is an unsigned integer value, whether it is a long, whether short. So we will be using suffix and prefix actually. Those things will be to define what kind of values we are reading and writing. And other than that, so next thing what we will be looking into is the variables. Like, so we already know that like variable has a type. So what exactly a variable we look into? So variables are used to store. Variables are used to store a value. It is something like a container. So if you wanted to store a value or read a value, you need to have a container. Like, so if you wanted to store a water, then you need to have container to store a water, correct? So to store a value into some read a value into something, then I need to have a container. Container means like a variable name. So that name will be allocated a memory and the value will be stored in that memory. So variables are very, very much essentials. So what is the variable name? That name is called identifiers. So there is a restrictions or there is a rules to define a variable. So what should be considered as a variable name? So what is the variable name? What is valid variable name? What is invalid variable names? Because when you say that, like when you say variable name, it should also have a some policy, correct? Some guidelines. In C programming language, everything like we need to know that like how should we call this a valid variable number. So then there is a restrictions. What is the restriction? You should have only alphanumerics. Alphanumeric means like A to Z, small letter or capital letters, and 0 to 9. Apart from that, only underscore is necessary. So other than underscore, other than this, if you are using any other things, then it is considered as a unrecognized variable names. You try to do anything other than this, it will say that like I'm not able to recognize it. So these are all the valid things. So number, my underscore money, underscore student, underscore, so cart 1, 2, 3, 4. These are all valid variable names, identifier things. And it cannot start with the number. So if it cannot start with number, and another thing is actually it is a case sensitive. This number and capital N, these both are different variable names. So everything is letter wise same, but one is like it is as a case sensitive. Any letter, it is differentiate capital and small letters. So anything, if you write a capital, anything, then it will two are different. So first thing is actually variable to store a what is called value. They are container. You can store what kind of values? You can store integer, you can store floating point, you can store char, you can store string, all those things you know. Then what is the proper policy? It's like guidelines to define a variable name. This is the guidelines to define a variable names. You should have only numbers, it should have only alphabets, that is only small letters and capital letters, and only one extra thing that is possible is underscore. And it should not start with numbers, and it should not be keywords. What is a keywords means? Like each words, like let me explain that also. Each words has a special meaning. So something that like double has a special meaning. Double is a data types name, correct? Int has a special meaning. So long is a special meaning. So else if has a special meaning. These are called keywords in C. While defining a variable name, you should not use a keywords. If you use a keywords, then the compiler will get confused whether it is a special meaning, it has a special meaning, or it is a variable name. So variable names, while defining, there is a guidelines. You should not be keyword. So what are the keywords supported in C programming language? Constant, float, short, unsigned, if, else. These are the keywords supported in C programming language. And variable name should not be same as a keyword name. Is that clear? Is that clear? So what are the type of variables we can define? Integer, floating point, characters, and wide. So any doubts here? Okay. So now, then two more things are there when we are trying to define a variable. So there is something called a declaration variable. One is the name of the variable that we discussed. And then another thing is actually declaration and something called a definition. What is meant by declaration? What is meant by definitions? So when I'm trying to define a variable, how should I define a variable? So for example, if I'm trying to define a variable, how should I define a variable? There are two steps are there. First is I should pick up the proper name. So for example, I'm saying that like a int age. I'm trying to define a variable called age. So to store age of a person. Then what is the age of a person? Person's age will be always in terms of integer. If 5 years old, 6 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old. Then okay, this is an integer. So then I should be saying int a, int age. Then I will be saying semicolon. This is a way of declaring the variable. So variable, this is the name of the variable. This is the name of the variable, and it should follow the guidelines what is defined for identifier. So is it only alphabets? Yes, because only alphabets, only numbers, only underscore. This is correct. And you should not be keyword. Yes, this is correct. And you should have a variable type. What kind of variable type? It's int. That is also fine because C supports int. So the name and the type and the semicolon. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, if I have to define the floating point, then how should I do? Float. So what is a float? Like for example, I wanted to store it. I wanted to read a salary of a person. Salary of a person will be something that like, so my salary is 32,000.50 paisa. Nowadays there is no paisa in the salaries in paisas, but earlier days there was in terms of paisas also something that like the salary will be. Now how should I read the salary? Then I'll be reading, okay, this is something like this decimal kind of a number. Then what is the name for, where should I read? What should be the name for that reading the salary? Then salary is very easy to remember. So I will be saying
Sir.
salary is a variable name. Now, how should I say that like it is a float? Then I will be saying float, float, variable and comma. What is the question? Any question? Okay. So float salary and semicolon you should not forget. So what is that actually? I'm trying to declare. So I'm trying to declare. What is a declaration? Means like I'm trying to declare is a variable and of type. So sometimes like when we say it's a definition of a variable, so we will be declaring a variable and then we'll be assigning a number to it. So assigning to the number is actually initialization. We call it as a assigning a where number to it is actually initialization. Then how should we do actually? So first I should be declaring, then I should be reading. So for example, if I have to assign, so I need to define age, then it is of type int. Now I hit declare, then I'm trying to assign. So either I'm trying to assign here, so here only age is equal to my age is 25, or I will be reading from the user. So I will be reading from the user. Let us do both actually. Let me write a program. So how should I start? Like if I have to read a age of yours, like how should I read a age of a person? So then what is the first step? First step is actually skeleton I should start. So skeleton should start include and in the bracket std dot. So how should I say std io dot h. So this is how I should be starting. Then okay, I should have a main function. So I am calling a main function bracket. Then main function should have a start and should have end. Since it is an integer, it returns integer. I will return integer 0. So this is all. Skeleton is done. Now what is my objective? Objective is actually read the age of a person. So to read the age of a person, what should I have? I should have a variable to read it. So what kind of variable I should need? I need an integer variable. So what should be the name of the variable? It should be age and then semicolon. Now what should I do? If I have to read, so then I should say that like scanf. So scanf will say I will be reading the age. So to scanf, what is the thing? Brackets within the quotes I should be reading. So what I am trying to read? Variable of int. So then means like I should have a percentage d, because variable in percentage d, variable float percentage f, variable double percentage lf. Lf is long thing. So depending on what you are trying to read. So I am trying to read a age of type integer. So percentage d, then comma, then I need to read into what variable? Age. So then I should be saying age. So age. Then how should I read? To mention I need to read into it actually. Then I should be using ampersand. So ampersand thing. And then this is a statement. I'm trying to end with the semicolon. Then what I will be doing? Then I will be saying printf, because I need to print, correct? So what I will be printing? My age is. Then I will be printing that. How should I print? Then I should say percentage d, because I am printing integer values. So I need percentage d. And in the comma, what is the value? Variable name age. So and then the statement will be ended. This is how I will be writing my code. So what is that actually? Like I should be entering the value, correct? So 1 minute. So I should be entering 25 is my age. So I'm trying to rate. So my age is 25. Any doubts? Guys, any doubts? Do you understood? Okay, let us write another program to add two numbers from user and do a summation of that, and it will be print. Or I'll just add two numbers and print that those two numbers. How should I do? So now, if I have to read two numbers, then I need two variables. So what assume that like what is a variable name? There is something that number one is one variable name and second variable name, all both are integer, correct? So then I will be saying comma here. So comma here, another variable name is num2. Means like if you have to define multiple variables on the same thing, then I should be using variable, all are of same type, correct? So both are of int. So num1 and num2 variable name separated by comma. Both are of type int. Now, how should I read both? Then one is I have read by %d. Then another I should be reading another %d. Then one is one I should be reading into num1. Then second one I should be reading. Then comma here. Then ampersand num2. So now, then I should be printing first value is. Then I should be printing here num1. Then I need to print for second thing also. Then I will be using another print. So if I want to print a new line, means like I need to print into the next line, then /n is necessary to print into the next line. So now I will be using /n to print the next line. Then I will be using num2. So here I should be saying second. So you should, what all things you should remember, this whole thing should be in the comma, in the quotes, and there is a comma, and after that variable name, bracket close, bracket start, and semicolon. Same thing. It's fine. So now I will be reading two numbers. Let us enter two numbers, 25 and 35. So I will be executing this code. The first value is 25, second value is 35. So if I'm not putting this new line, what will happen? So if you run it actually, this is how it will happen. So this one, if I wanted to print it to the next line, I should have a new line here. New line, /n is a new line. And if you want in between gap, I don't want a new line, I want just a gap between that. So there is /t means like a t means like tab. So it will give one space tab. So if you are not giving anything here, so means like it will print next to it. So just one next to each. So you want some space here. So I should be entering here space, some space. It will give some space. So if you want proper one proper space, so you should be using /t. So you will be getting a proper space. Any doubts here? Any doubts? Okay. So we understood what is meant by declaration, what is meant by defining, and what is meant by doing declaration and assigning. So another thing is actually like we can no need to do that also. No need to read from the user. What I can do, I can assign also. I can assign value also. So I don't need to read from user. So instead of entering from here, I can say that like, okay, I will say here only num1 is equal to 25. And I'll say num2 is equal to 35. So I can, as this is called assignment, I can assign here only. I can assign here only. Or is it fine? So I can assign values here only. Or instead of assigning independently, what I'll say num2 is num1 only. This is another way of assigning, because I assign this value here and I'm assigning that value variable to another variable. So this also fine. Both will be same. So if you see, both will be same, 25 only. So any doubts? So how to declare a variable? What is the policy to declare identifier, and how to assign, how to read from user? Any doubts? Okay. Let me, instead of doing this also, what I can do, I can assign here only. So what I can do, I will say 25 here only, not necessary to be outside. So I don't need these two. So I don't need these two. Not necessary. I can assign, declare everything here. So fine. So I can do that also. No problem. Any doubts? Any doubts? So if I have to define a char, how should I do? Char, then C, then I'll be assigning 25. So I'll be saying print C, yes, C. And first value. So fine. Now, if you wanted to have float, I can have float also. Float. So I should be saying F here, and that's it. So any doubts? So we read the integer, we read the float point, we assigned integer, floateger, and the character, all those things we printed. So depending on what variable, what type, this percentage will change, and the definition will change. It's fine. Any doubts?
No, sir.
Okay. This is a very, very fundamental thing, and you should be very, very good at actually, because then we will able to do lot more things. So what is the keywords? We understood. Keywords is actually compiler has a special, like, interpret this as a special meaning. It has some special meaning. So now, so print statement we discussed. So in the quotes, you should have appropriate, like this variable is of type integer, then percentage D has to be there. That you should be remember. So double, float, all we discussed. So any questions here? So create two variable, number and number two, value with 28. Print number one with the space in between. That we all discussed actually. Character, variable, character, all these things are done. Any questions? So age is integer, so that's why I'm using percentage. Is also integer. So it's fine. Any questions? See, whenever you are trying to write a program, let us write some program, and I'll try to show that like how should we do. Okay. Okay. So let us do some small program. Reading two numbers from user. So assume that like I need to read two numbers, and then sum of the two numbers. So how should we read two numbers, and how should we do sum of the two numbers? So to read two numbers, I need to have two variables. Assume that like num1 is variable 1 and num2 is another variable name. So num2 is another variable name. And I have to calculate the sum, means like I should have a variable to calculate and store the sum. So that variable name is sum. So then how should we start? So now first is actually, okay, first I should be reading two variables and all are int, all are integer. So then what I will be doing? Int number one, comma, number two. Why number two? Because I need to two variable numbers, number one, number two. And I also need to store the summation into another variable, that is sum, that is also integer. So it's like number two, comma, then sum. So that is what is called semicolon. Now initially sum is equal to 0. Assume that like I wanted to assign sum is equal to 0. Now I need to read two numbers. So then what I should be doing? I will be using scanf to read the two numbers. So what is those two numbers? So scan percentage D, percentage 2. Now I need to no need to print this actually. Now what is next? I think actually I should be doing sum. Sum is equal to num1 plus num2. So this is a summation of things, num1, num2. Then since this is an expression, I will be ending with this one. Then I should be printing. What should I print? Printf. I say that like sum of two numbers equal to what is actually this sum is also print, correct? Is a decimal. So percentage D. Then I should be saying sum. So then this statement has to be end with thing. So this is yes, some is small letter. So here also small letter. So fine. So what is it actually like before we jump into this? So any doubts here? Any doubts here? Anybody not understood this? So adding two numbers, basic things. So if you still got confused, how should we start? So let us say that like this is not there. So let me that like first way, how should you start? First, anything if question is asked, actually we should write the skeleton. Skeleton means like there should be include, there should be main, and the main starts, main end, return. This is skeleton. Next, you should be able to identify. I need to sum two numbers. To sum two numbers, I should have two numbers, correct? So means like I should be have a two variable to store two numbers. Then I should have a variable to store a sum also. This is we should be identifying. Then you need to declare that. So how should we declare? So all are type integer. So I should be declaring that. So int sum. Then what is next thing actually? So next thing is I should be reading two numbers, correct? So then how should we read? So you should know that like reading two numbers. This is the next thing. So I should be reading two numbers. Now I need to do sum. So how should I do sum? So whether I need to initialize sum is equal to 0, it's up to you. But or I just wanted to have sum two numbers. And how should we do sum? Sum is equal to sum num plus 1, num plus 2. Then I need to print the sum. So how should I do that? Like for printing, we should have a printf. So we should know the printf. So it should be printf. And this is what I wanted to print is equal to. Why I need this one actually? To look it better, because this is how it looks like. If it is not there, without this also we can write. But this looks much more beautiful to understand the output. And since sum is integer, then I order %d and in the comma sum. So this is how you should build step by step. So if you are not comfortable in the programming in one go, you just think one by one step, and you should be able to write the result. So any questions here? So if you wanted to write a sum of 4 numbers, what you should be doing? If the sum of 8 numbers, what you should be doing? So sum of so you should be able to think in that direction. How should I write a function? C code. So what are the things I should be doing? So any questions here? Okay. So what we will do next actually, instead of going into put char and bat char, and there is something called one more important concept in the C is called type conversion. What exactly means by type conversion? Converting value from one type to another type. What is a type? Data types. Int is one data type, float is one. It's like how should we convert one data types to another data types? There are two approaches are there. One is implicit conversion, another is explicit conversion. What is meant by implicit conversion? I am not specifying you to convert the number, automatically get converted. So for example, I have given, see, for example, I have given the input as a floating number. So I have given an input as a something that like I have given something that like this is a floating number. Assume that like this is a is equal to this. So now A is of type float. Assume that like A is of type float. A is a float. Now B is of type int. B is of type int. So assume that like if B is of type int. Now if I assign B, assign value A to B, then what happens actually? This is a float and this is a int. So I'm not doing anything conversion, but what happens actually? This value will be get converted into integer value. It will discard certain portion of the floating value and it will convert. And so what is the value will be become? It will become 12. So what is happening actually? This floating value is getting converted into integer value. So A is a integer, A is a float, but when I assign A to B, the floating value will get converted into integer value. This is called some kind of a conversion. If it is automatically getting converted without me saying that like convert from one to other, then that is called implicit conversion. So let me give an example of implicit conversion. So let us do an example code. So we'll understand better. So let me run a code here. So what I'm trying to do is actually double is a floating value I'm trying to assign. So now this double I wanted to print. To print a double, so I need to have a something like a LF to print. So this is the new line. I wanted to have new line. So now I am trying to assign this value to number integer. Number is an integer. So now I am trying to print that. So let us see that like how this value which was double is getting converted, like this value double will become an integer and I'm trying to print. So this kind of conversion is called implicit type conversion. So the double value 1450.1 is got converted into 4150. 4150 dot has discarded. So what happened actually? The value by assigning the double to integer, that double value is got converted into integer value. So this kind of conversion is called implicit type conversion. Any doubts here? Why use percentage %d? Why use this one? What is meant by double? What is meant by int? What is meant by this printf? Any questions here? So what is this code? / means what? So this double value, convert the double value to integer. So this type is called, this kind of conversion. This kind of conversion is called. This kind of conversion is called. Is called implicit type casting. Type casting. What is casting? Means like casting. You know what is in movie something like a casting is like I'm giving a certain role, correct? So type casting is like assigning some type of the variable. So implicit type casting is like I'm assigning a type to a variable. So converting and assigning a new type to that variable. So type casting, it is called type casting, conversion to one to another type. So any doubts? Any doubts here? What is meant by double? What is meant by int? So any questions here? Any questions? So why I used LF? F is a floating point, LF is double floating, double. So to use double, I should be printing. So to read it or to print it, actually for a double value, I need LF, long float, the double. So any question? So what is this percentage necessary? Because percentage is trying to say that like I'm trying to deal with specific data types. So correct. So whether you are trying to print or whether you are trying to read, every time I should be doing. Only way how should be different. Where I should say that like whether I'm trying to print means like I don't need ampersand. If you have to read, then I should be having scanf, but I should be having ampersand. So if I should have ampersand to read into. So this ampersand is necessary and this has to be scanf. So you should be remembering that. Any questions here? Okay. So implicit typecasting. So one more example. Let me do one more example. So what I'm trying to do here is actually include, that is necessary, main, that is necessary, this flower bracket is necessary to end, this return is necessary. Now I'm trying to assign a char value. So what is a char? Alphabet is a variable name, char is a type. So char space alphabet, and this is I'm trying to assign. So in codes, correct? So now I'm trying to print that. So character value. So to print character value, %c. So /n is new line and variable name. So now what I'm trying to do, int a number, I'm assigning character to the number. So what happens actually, I'm trying to print. To print the number, number is an integer, so percentage D. So now what happens actually? This is a character I'm assigning to integer. So since it is character and getting converted into integer, so that is called implicit typecasting. So character is getting converted into integer. So what is the value this 97 come? This 97 is each character has a ASCII value. So let us show you that like ASCII value of a characters. So this is common across every programming language. It is not like specific to only C or Python. ASCII values of characters. So ASCII value of characters. This is the most of the times this ASCII tables will be common across programming language. So a small letter A, what is a small letter A value is? So this is a character and this is a decimal value 97. So since I'm assigned this number to a character, so that value, the ASCII value will be assigned to this. Means like character is getting converted into integer. Character is getting converted into integer. So this kind of conversion is called implicit typecasting. This kind of conversion is called implicit typecasting. So any questions here? So what is declaration? What is assignment? What is implicit typecasting? How should we print value? How should we read value? Any doubts? Any doubts? Okay, let us discuss about one more thing that is called explicit typecasting. So explicit typecasting, after that, like we will take the end. So that is the last session. So last thing. So we'll do 1 or 2 questions if you have any doubts or like any program if you want to do, or else like we'll end here. So what is the explicit typecasting is like I'm purposefully converting manually. I'm trying to convert. So let us see that like one example and I will explain what is the explicit typecasting. So let us take one example here. So now here integer number is integer, that is 97, and I wanted to convert, I wanted to assign this number to the variable. So means like first I'm defining an integer value. What is that actually? Number is an integer value and I'm assigning 97 and I'm trying to print that integer actually. How should I print? Printf integer value. This is your thing and percentage D and new line, and I'm trying to print number and the semicolon. So this is what is I should be doing the first step. So I just created a integer value and I'm just printing. Now I'm trying to assign this number to a character. So what is this number is an integer and this alphabet is a character. So how should I define an alphabet as character? Char and alphabet. So now this can be done in one go or it can be done in 2 go also. Like first I'm trying to define and then I wanted to assign. So this is also fine. So this is also fine, or 1 go also I can do. So assume that like I install the char as alphabet. Alphabet is a character value. So alphabet is equal to number. So if you cannot do directly here, so it won't convert. So to convert this number, which is integer, to character, I am using a bracket. In the bracket, I am specifying char because I want that integer to be get converted to the number. So here I'm particularly specifying you need to get converted into specific other type. So how I'm trying to do in front of the variable in the bracket, I'm trying to give what type it has to be get converted. So it has to be converted int, then I should be specifying int. If it has to be converted into character, then I should be specifying character. So remember that in front of the variable, there is a space is here. So it should not be here. Like there is a space is also there. So and in the bracket, I'm trying to specify what way type it has to be get converted. And then I'm trying to print. To print alphabet, that is a character. So I should be using %C. Any doubts here? So this is how it got converted. So integer value 97 is got converted into ASCII value A. So why this how it got converted based on the ASCII value. So what is 97? 97 in ASCII character looks like A. So it is got converted into a character. Any question? So this kind of conversions are called explicit typecasting. So explicit typecasting. So you can convert. So let us go one more example and we will wind up. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to define a double value. Double is floating point. So I'm trying to define. So double. So I'm trying to print. So now again, I'm trying to define an integer and I'm trying to assign. So instead of directly assigning, so what I can say, I will be from double to integer. I can also do something like this in int this way. So I can convert into int. So this is if I'm doing like something like this, this is called explicit typecasting. Without this, if it is happening, then it is called implicit typecasting. Sometimes it doesn't possible to convert. That is the reason we need to have explicit. Something will be automatically got converted. Something is not automatically got converted. So for example, see, from double to integer is very easy to convert because things happen. So from here to here float also possible to convert. But what happens actually, like let us do the other way around. So if it is an integer, so assume that this you make integer and this I will be printing percentage d. Then here I will make float or else double. Then I will be converting into double value. So then I will be saying some percentage. So now this can be done. So there is no such the other way around. Like, so only thing is extra dot has got added there. So I should be changing this. This is a double. This is integer. So any questions? So if you convert the higher order, what is higher order? Long double is needs more 8 bytes. Then double, or long double needs 10 bytes, double needs 8 bytes, float needs 4 bytes, long int needs some number of 8 bytes, 4 bytes, int also 4 bytes, short needs 2 bytes, char needs 1 bytes. So if you are converting from higher order number, it needs more number of bytes to lower order, which needs less number of bytes, then you will be losing the data. So losing the data means like what you will be trying to do. So if it is something like, if I'm trying to say something like this actually, so 4.123. So this is a double or like float. So from float to I am trying to convert into int. What happens actually, this value will be lost. So only 4 will be stored. So this is called losing the information, losing the data. So if you are converting from higher order to lower order, so from this to this actually, you will be losing value. But from lower to higher, if you do actually, you won't be losing the value, but there is no gain also. It's like, so we can convert from here to here, here to here, either explicit, either implicit. So you can possible to convert from one to other. So only thing is like, if you convert from higher to lower, then there is a possibilities of losing the value, losing the information. So or lose data loss, other way around, it is not possible. So one example, like the previous example I showed, so there is a data loss. Like, let me show that again. So here, there is a data loss will happen. So means like, so this value, like dot 1 point value will be lost. So see, initially it was something like this, then integer. So I'm losing this point value. So that is called data loss type conversion. So what are the things we look? This is the first session. So we looked into the basic things about the structure of the C program. What is a C program? Structure of the C program. What kind of data types are there? And what is the size of these data types? And what is meant by typecasting? And how should we read input? What is how should we write output? What is meant by standard input and output? What is meant by include means what is a preprocessor? What is meant by compiler? So these are the basic things. Like, so if they ask you the basic things, they will ask you that, like, what are the data types supported by C? They will be asking you, and they will be asking you just write a hello program and explain each and every terms in the hello program. So what all the terms are there in hello program? If you have to do, what is a statement, what is a function, what is a variable? So in hello program, so this is a predefined preprocessor definition. This is a function, and this is a return statement. What is meant by block statement? what is meant by variable, what is meant by type of the variables, all those things, basic things we covered. In the next class, what we will be covering, we will be covering more about operators, what kind of operators supported there, and then we will be covering conditional statements, for loops, and we will be doing a lot more programs. So because this, I hope by this time you would have comfortable with the writing the skeleton of the C code. Skeleton of the C code means like anytime when I ask you to write a skeleton of the C code, you should be able to write this much. So this is called skeleton of C code. So you should be able to have include main function, return, and something. So this is called skeleton of the C code. So you should then, depending on what you wanted to do, then one by one you should be trying to do. So if you have to read two values, then you should be assigning two values like num1 and num2. So then declaring that. Then you wanted to read something, then you should be. It's like you should not by-heart the program. You should first understand what necessary to the to do in the program, and then write one by one. There is no necessary that like you should be writing in one go and by-hearting that what is the order. First, see if you have to read two number, then first you should like what number, then I'll be saying scanf, then I should be adding that. Then if you want to do sum of two number, then you assign int is equal to sum, then now you can do sum. No, it's like this you should start building it. Actually, do not by heart like something that like I have seen some people was by hearting the program. Oh, hash include then int main, then int a b c, and some almost like in number num2, like should not be doing. So you should be writing the skeleton, and then what activity you do, what necessary to do that, like to read a two number, what is necessary. First you should initialize the numbers. What kind of numbers? Integer numbers. Okay, initialize numbers. Then to read number, then I should be writing a scanf. Then I should be doing %d and %rho because both are integer. Then in the comma num1. Then what is the next one? So that is how you should be trying to write the code, and semicolon. Okay, next. Next, what is that? Actually, I need to add sum of the number. Then I should initialize sum. Then I should do sum. Sum is equal to num1 into num2. So this is how you should be writing num2. Then what is the next actually? Okay, I need to print the result. Then what is the to print result? I need a printf. Then what is the skeleton of printf? This is skeleton of the printf. First, you should write a skeleton of printf. Then what value you should be printing? Integer. So then %d has to be there, and then semicolon, that sum has to be there. So can I write something extra value? Okay, what I should be saying? This is sum. So now I will be saying the sum of two numbers. Two numbers is equal to. So this is how you should be keep building. And here enter two values. So I should be enter two values. So now like this, so no need to add things, because where should I write actually? This is a string. So string has to be written in the quotes. So it has to be written in the quotes. And to read something, so is it correct? No. To read two I should be having %. So then you should have a %, in front of the numbers. So these things, see, because you cannot read directly variables, you should have a %, to read into variables. So while printing, not necessary. This is necessary, this % necessary, this percentage things are necessary. So these things you should like, and that every statement has to end with the semicolon. So if you think in that structure way, writing code and what needs to be done, it is much more easy. But if you start by hatting, then it will become very, very difficult. So here I will end the session. So I think I'm completed what has to be completed, and I have shared this document for your reference. So every time why I'm trying to share this document now, I don't want to cover gradually as it is covered in the class. It is a crash course. So I will be sending you a document. You should be going through the document. And then if you come to the class, then you will understand better. If you come directly and you explain me that like everything should be covered in the way it has to be covered in the class, then it will take 60 hours. So I wanted to cover in this whole C program in 10 to 12 hours in the crash course, everything I wanted to cover. That is the reason I'm sending you a document. You go through the document and then we'll discuss. Is it fine?
Yes, sir.
So because we have done up to 50 pages kind of things, documents. And if still have any doubts, actually, like we in the next class, you go through this document. I'll be sharing the document in the group. So you go through this document, and if you have any doubts, we can discuss first doubts, and then we go to the next thing. So next class, we will be covering operators, if-else statements, loop statements. And intention of this session is actually do more programs, not more theoretical things. So I'm just refreshing the theoretical things and doing more and more programs. That is what you people are lacking. So we want you people to be experts in writing programs. So more and more programs we'll be doing, but this structure is necessary. What is necessary? That is the reason I'm trying to cover. And the whole in the next class, entire thing will be covered. And when things are covered, we will be doing more and more programs. The intention is to have do more and more programs. Fine. So thank you for your patience. So have a good day.